You ready to go, Marcy? Thank you very much. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Tuesday, November 14th to order. Firstly, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the city of Colwood lies within the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking people, represented by the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. First item on item two is the approval of the agenda. Before I ask for a mover and seconder, I want to make a slight change to the agenda. One item was missed out on item 8.1. We have the recommendation is that Councillor Day be appointed to the Infrastructure Committee as chair. Councillor Kim Jordison be appointed as vice chair. I want to add and that the terms of reference membership be changed from 4 citizen committee members to 5 citizen committee members. That was an error originally. So on that note, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the near-term agenda and today's agenda of the regular council meeting be adopted as presented? Councillor Day. Okay. And I'll just open it up for discussion. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'd just like to move that 7.4 be removed from the consent agenda.
Okay, that will now become 8.4 under new business then. Okay, any other changes anyone wants? Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And it's unanimous. Approved. Motion carried. Adoption, or I guess mayor's message. I just have 3 things to say tonight. Firstly, I'd like to, it's a bit late now, but certainly like to thank the Colwood Volunteer Firefighters Association. They hosted the Halloween celebration on bonfire on October 31st at Colwood Fire Hall. Don't know if you all had a chance to go there, but it was a lot of fun. So it was extremely well attended. And I'd like to thank the Volunteer Firefighters Association. Secondly, more regional here, congratulations to the West Shore Rebels football team. They won the BC Championship, the Cullen Cup. The last time they did that, I was the president of the football team, so I take a little pride in that. And unfortunately, the same result with the Canadian Championship on the weekend, they lost by a touchdown. So, but they really represented us well, and I'm really proud of the guys. They did really, really well. So, the last or second to last thing I want to just do is just want to announce that Councillor Ian Ward will be acting mayor from 1st of November till the end of February in my absence, just so that everyone knows who the acting mayor when I'm not around. And finally, I really want to express my sincere appreciation to Mike Tedesco. And Mike is a scout leader with the 7th Wandafuga Scouts Canada. And every year, he does this thing. He organizes the Remembrance Day at our Colwood Cenotaph. He just does an outstanding job. He just does this quietly. And the reason I love attending it, it's not an official cenotaph because we do the celebrations at the VMP Memorial in the West Shore, but I go to the Colwood Cenotaph every year because what he does, he brings the Boy Scouts and the Girl Guides and the Brownies, and it's a kids event. And I think it's so neat that we keep the young kids remembering what Remembrance Day is all about. And it's extremely well attended. So, I mean, this year, again, the Todd Preston, Superintendent Preston, provided 2 RCMP officers in scarlets. It was pretty phenomenal. And we had a piper, and we had a trumpeter. So it was just a phenomenal ceremony. So again, I'd like to publicly acknowledge Mike Tedesco for doing this from day one, and he continues to do it quietly. So thank you very much. And that's all I have. So I'm going to move on to item 4, adoption and receipt of the minutes. Whoops. Councillor Day.
I just wanted to add that Royal Roads also did an excellent job. I was asked to attend Royal Roads on behalf of council. And as a prior military college, they put on a pretty magnificent display there as well. And it was also well attended.
Thank you very much, Councillor Day. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, adoption receipt of the minutes. May I have a mover and seconder? Okay, Grove and Olson. Any are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion adopted. Public participation. Okay, so tonight we have something different for your entertainment. We're trying to get everyone to stay on time, just to be fair to everyone. Well, we have this new light system up here, so you don't have to listen to that annoying, school bell that we normally push when your time is up. So you'll see it. There's a light system up there. It's green, you're allowed to speak. Yellow means you got 1 minute left, and red means we're gonna cut you off in about 30 seconds. Yeah, they'll get shocked. But we brought this up. It's just a lot less obtrusive when you're speaking. So that's what that lighting system is. It's brand new. And at this point in time, I'm just going to welcome people from the public to come up and voice their opinions. If anyone wants to wait for their specific item on the agenda item, they can do that. And I'm just going to get a show of hands. If anyone wants to wait, or would they like to all do it right now? Okay, there's 2 that are going to do it. That's when the item comes up specifically on the agenda, right? Just want to make sure I'm clear. You want to do it right now then? Okay, so just 1. Okay, on that note, I'll turn it over to the public. And is there anyone on the screen that wants to? Online, yeah. Okay, thank you. So if I can ask the people that wants to speak, come on up, please. Oh, you just have to push that button on your mic there.
There we go. Me? My name is Margot Whitbread. I live at 2940 Merle Drive, Colwood, BC. And I sent a letter to Mayor and Council, included the letter today, got it into Marcy, late to be added on the agenda. That I wasn't going to read my letter, but I think I will to get it on the record. And as a longtime resident and former councillor, I write to you to express my serious concerns regarding changes proposed by the provincial government to our Local Government Act and the Community Charter. I have reviewed Bill 44 and I'm surprised at the extent of the changes to Part 14 of the Planning and Land Use Management and the Local Government Act. I have not yet extensively reviewed Bills 46 and 47. However, I understand that they also are a part of the changes. The review of these bills is a huge task to attempt on my own, and believe that a thorough and open discussion by council or committee would be an opportunity to provide and hear from the residents who own properties that will be impacted by the changes. I was going to write a letter to the Times Colonist. However, I read a letter this morning to the Times Colonist. This is not in my letter. And noticed that there was a gentleman that was congratulating Mayor Tobias. So I checked with them and to find out exactly what was happening in View Royal. And they have a motion that I would like council to consider and take under advisement and perhaps even pass. I'll read that motion. It's moved that because Bill 44 will override municipal zoning requirements and eliminate the need for public hearings for increased density on residential lots, and because the province has not engaged. I guess you're taking me out. I ask you to please consider that motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Margot. It's interesting. Don't take our silence as that means we're happy about this right now. I can tell you that right now. I actually sent in 33 questions, have not been answered yet. And we have been under advisement, wait till the detailed policy comes out. And it's very disturbing. I can tell you that right now. So I just want you to feel there's a comfort in that. Yeah, we're not happy with what's going on here. From what we see, I'm just reading what we know right now and what the media is reporting and what the bill says. But the devil is in the detail. I agree.
It was my opinion that was being done and get on the agenda because there was no actual document. I understand the bills that we received first reading. By the time we get third and fourth reading, it's almost too late. And the council to take action as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Next, please. Anybody else wish to speak, please?
Mark Salter, Dunlin Street, 13501 Dunlin, newly resident to Colwood, currently on this City of Colwood's Heritage Advisory Committee. Just a sidebar to what the previous speaker said, and just reminded me of something I wanted to bring forward to council. She misspoke and said Victoria when she was giving her address. We all live in Colwood. And as I understand it, for the City of Colwood to be recognized as a postal address, City Council has to then forward a request to the province to make us a City of Colwood address and not have to be burdened with Victoria addresses. What is the process for doing so? And I retire my time to let council just determine that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker, please. See none. Oh, there. Okay.
My name is Larry Jacoby. I live at 3401 Carter Terrace. I can't tell you my whole story in 2 minutes, so I'll just jump to the chase here. I have a view property, and in front of my property is a vacant Colwood lot. And that vacant Colwood lot now is being populated by trees that are being put on that lot by a neighbor. In November of 2019, Colwood came and instructed that neighbor to remove the trees. He has put the trees all back there again this year. I have contacted by email Colwood staff, and I've copied some councillors and the mayor and department heads. I did that in June and I did it again in October. And I am getting no response from anybody. And I would appreciate somebody looking into that for me, please. Now, you may not think this is a serious issue, and it's not going to be an issue for a few more years. But the oak trees that have been planted there will obstruct my view in the future. And that's going to reduce the value of my property. So I would like this looked into, please. And I would like somebody to get back in touch with me about the 2 submissions I have already made this year. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Jen, did you take note of that one? Just make sure an AR is raised on that. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak at this point in time? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move on. Delegations, exploration of a CRD water supply service development cost charge program. And I understand Patrick Stevens, you're here to do the presentation. If you can introduce your team, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just get the presentation up here. Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Patrick Stevens, project engineer in the CRD's Water Supply Engineering and Planning Division. And with me tonight, also from the CRD, are Scott Mason and Joseph Marr. And we also have Urban Systems, our consultant here tonight, with Sean Heffernan and Samantha Bowen both in attendance. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to inform City of Colwood Mayor and Council of the proposed regional water supply development cost charge program, and to answer any immediate questions surrounding the project. We ask that any follow-up questions, concerns, or comments be communicated through staff or brought forward through your representation on the Regional Water Supply Commission. The CRD has been working alongside Urban Systems for some time to develop the draft DCC program and bylaw for the Regional Water Supply Service and to navigate the implementation process. The project was first identified to be explored through the Regional Water Supply 2017 Strategic Plan and was then identified as a priority by the CRD board in the CRD's 2023 to 2026 corporate plan, with the intent of implementing the Regional Water DCC bylaw. The Water Advisory Committee, as well as the Regional Water Supply Commission, have been informed of our progress to date and have endorsed the continuation of the project to the consultation phase, which we are working through now. For those of you that may not be familiar, the Regional Water Supply Service provides bulk drinking water to the municipalities and First Nations in the Greater Victoria area. This includes the supply of water to the Nafiseh water distribution system, which in turn provides drinking water to residents of Colwood. The primary water source is the Souk Lake Reservoir, and major components of the system include 3 watersheds, 15 dams, 2 tunnels, 2 disinfection facilities, and nearly 120 kilometers of transmission mains. I'll now have Urban Systems staff continue on with the presentation to provide background information, progress to date, and next steps. Thank you.
Hi, Council. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm going to go through the presentation here, probably about 7 or 8 minutes.
Excuse me for one second. Can we move that picture of everyone over off the screen? Thank you.
We'll have about a 7 or 8 minute presentation. I'll go through this pretty quickly, but happy to go back to any slides if there's questions as we're going through. Thank you. So we're going to do a quick overview of the DCCs and what they are as a tool and how this fits into the Regional Water Supply Service. We're going to do an overview of the program itself, how it was developed, and then we're going to look at draft rates, and there'll be some opportunity for discussion questions. So just a quick overview of DCCs. So DCCs are tools, a development finance tool that supports the cost sharing of infrastructure and infrastructure needed, offsite infrastructure required to support new growth and development within communities. It is regulated by the province through Section 14 of the Local Government Act and the DCC Best Practices Guide. It requires, as with DCCs in the City of Colwood, it require approval through the inspector municipalities. So the philosophy of DCCs overall are to foster fairness, ensure consistency, to minimize financial risk to the CRD, to ensure certainty for the development community through a clear policy framework, to promote transparency and equitability, and ensure the timely processing of development applications. DCCs are paid at 1 of 2 times: at time of subdivision for the creation of single-family development sites, and the time building permit for the construction of multifamily, commercial, industrial, and institutional development. Current DCC rates in the City of Colwood include just over $10,000 for a single detached unit. And this is in terms of municipal DCCs. We currently have municipal DCCs for transportation, parks, and sewer. And this also would result in those municipal DCCs, you also pay, a developer would pay 1 Nafiseh water distribution DCC. This is different from the regional water supply DCC, and it's focused on distribution. And that is currently just under $3,000. So a single detached lot currently is paying just over $13,000 with the municipal DCCs and 1 Nafiseh, and just over $7,000 for a multifamily unit. Just a quick overview of the program development. So within every DCC program is a fairly simple equation where the total project costs for the works required and the proportionate that is benefiting new versus existing growth is divided by the overall growth to create the DCC rate. So in this, we developed 30-year growth projections based on the project time horizons that we identified through the development of the program. These growth projections were based on growth estimates that are actually being used for the city of Colwood's DCCs under their current updates. The program itself was identified a 30-year timeframe. The projects themselves were identified through the 2022 water supply master plan, as well as CRD capital planning for 2023. Overall, the master plan itself recommends over $2 billion worth of infrastructure improvements in the next 30 years. Upon adoption of that plan, DCCs were identified as a key funding mechanism for the overall implementation of the regional water supply master plan. For project benefit allocations, again, this is the relative benefit of a project to new growth versus existing development. These were determined on a project by project basis for each project. Many of the projects are seen as having kind of a proportionate benefit to existing and new growth, and are therefore establishing a benefit allocation along the lines of future population change. I can talk more about that if there's any questions. So again, just a quick overview of how we determine the rates, we determine the growth, we determine the overall capital project costs and timing. For each project, we again determine its share to benefit to existing growth versus future development. And then there's the DCC assist factor. So this is a pure policy decision to be made by the CRD board, which is an option to assist development. So provide an increased subsidy to the development industry through a reduced DCC rate. I'll talk more about that in a couple slides. So just a quick overview, the current growth projections, again, we're using are based on growth projections that were discussed as part of the development of City of Colwood's DCCs and reviewed through discussions with the planning staff from the city. I can go through this quickly. We're currently projecting over 2,250 low density residential units, 3,000 medium density residential units, 3,750 high density residential units, just over 5,000 square meters of commercial, 78,000 square meters of institutional, and 180,000 square meters of industrial. So again, the DCC assist factor is based on a requirement through the Local Government Act that local governments must assist development for DCCs. This assist factor can range from a low of 1% to a high of 99%. The proposed DCC assist factor that we're applying at this point is the lower 1%. Any change in DCC assist factor must be made up through non-DCC revenue sources. So again, as a policy decision for the CRD Regional Board to increase the assist, and if it does any increase in assist, which would have the effect of reducing DCCs, that revenue must be made up through a non-DCC revenue source. In this case, it would be the utility rate, bulk water rate. This is a quick overview of the projects. So we basically have 6 kind of overarching projects within the program itself. The Souk Lake Reservoir, again, is a project to increase water supply and level of service improvements. Leachhead water, and this is again assigned a benefit allocation of 35%. And that represents, again, the proportionate population change. So in this, we're saying this project benefits existing development and future growth proportionately. The Leachhead watershed is given a benefit allocation of 100%. That is based on the fact that it's entirely required to create new water supply capacity. The water filtration plant at 820 million is again 35%. The transmission mains 487 million, 35%. Smith Hill storage tank. It's more of a project cost shared. The smaller project is a renewal of and upsizing of an existing storage tank. And then there's studies and modeling. So overall, again, it's a development cost share program. So the over $1.4 billion worth of projects, approximately 523 million will be paid for through DCCs, with the remaining 920 million to be paid for through non-DCC revenue sources, i.e. the water rates. So the draft DCCs being proposed at this point in time are $9,000 per lot for low density residential, $7,900 for medium density residential, $5,000 per unit for high density multifamily residential, $3,392 for commercial, $1,696 for industrial, and $7,348 for institutional. This brings the total municipal DCC rate for single attached unit in Colwood to $22,000, and for high density multifamily unit to just over 12,000. This is a quick overview, just showing kind of comparison of communities across BC and kind of where Colwood would fit in with this rate applied. Again, this would apply to every local government within the CRD. So the same rates would apply on top of the Nafiseh rate where that's applied, but it would apply to every community from Souk to Sydney. So every same rate across the entire capital region. This is just a quick conceptual overview. We call this kind of the worst case scenario of what it will look like to develop the infrastructure without DCCs. So you can see the kind of the bulk water rate per cubic meter increases from around 80 cents today to over 350 per cubic meter within kind of the next 10 to 15 years. So DCCs would help to reduce this overall change in the current water rates as the water supply, regional water supply master plan and capital plans are implemented. Again, DCCs would cover approximately 30 to 40% of those total costs. So just a quick overview. So we have done the technical analysis and background. We have met with staff from each of the local governments. We're presenting to councils from each of the local governments. We'll bring back any feedback that we have from you tonight to the Regional Water Supply Commission and ask for direction to proceed. If we're given direction to proceed, we will then facilitate open houses and discussions with the development community once we have our rates finalized. So part of this exercise has been to update and refine our growth estimates and collect feedback. So the rates that you're seeing tonight are not final. Once those are finalized and we have direction for the Regional Water Supply Commission, we will bring that forward to the public and development stakeholders for consultation. In the interim, we have a website that we're currently using to provide project updates and background information. It's important to note that if adopted, the DCC program has proposed implementation date of early 2025. Many projects with in-stream applications will be granted the 12-month grace period under the Local Government Act. So many applicants will not be impacted to 2026. And the CRD will reevaluate and update its DCC program every 5 years, as it does with the Nafiseh Water Distribution System DCCs. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So I just want to make sure I'm clear, Stephen. You'll take questions right now and then follow-up questions. We email them to you then. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I was clear that you're going to take questions.
Yes.
I'm going to withhold my questions till last. I'm not very happy, I can tell you that. But I will open it up to Councillor Ward first. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are some questions perhaps throughout what I want to say, but it's also really just for me an opportunity to share my sentiments on this with the public and Colwood taxpayers and people in the development community and others that have a vested interest in this. You know, we're talking about near doubling the DCCs in this community, which, you know, has a significant impact. We heard in public participation, an individual speaking about the status of housing and how that is impacted. And it's interesting to me that there's folks at the CRD on the board that are the loudest drum beaters on housing and affordability in the region. And yet they don't seem to take issue with dropping, you know, $2 billion on something where the science doesn't necessarily support it and the data doesn't necessarily support it, that would have a trickle down effect on home buyers in our community and across the CRD. Ultimately, the additional costs layered onto the development community, they find their way to the folks that are going to have to open up their wallets, much like you see the same when cost of goods increase for wholesalers and other business suppliers. Ultimately, the end consumer pays. So my concern is that the Regional Water Supply 2022 Master Plan, you know, clearly states that this kind of project is based on assumptions. And throughout it states a number of times that an achievable reduction in demand could lead to a deferral of decades or more on this type of project. You know, and speaking specifically to water supply and demand, I think I'm a data-driven person. What interests me is that at least for the period I have data on, for a 25-year period, starting in 1995, despite a growth rate across the CRD of almost 30%, water usage declined. So the notion that that water demand is steadily increasing, coupled with growth in the region, doesn't hold weight. I mean, if you can't get a better sample size than 25 to 30 years, I don't know what you can do. So I find that a little bit distressing that, you know, in the master plan itself, it basically states that only if these assumptions are realized is this plan kind of valid. We don't have any data to suggest that these assumptions make sense, and yet we're still forging ahead with $2 billion. On water quality, the plan itself, this is the 2022 CRD plan. It states that currently the Souk Lake and Goldstream reservoirs water quality meets the Provincial Drinking Water Protection Act and associated regulations in terms of its disinfection practices and qualities. It actually classifies it as very good. And the statement, the exact statement in the 2022 plan, and I'll read this for people, it says the CRD drinking water quality from the Souk Lake Reservoir is very good, and it is difficult to provide economic justification for construction of filtration at this time. Yet in this plan, we see $819 million dedicated towards a filtration plan without any data to support it. You know, and some of the comments are that, well, you know, you have drought, you have wildfires. Well, the last significant drought was in 2001 in this region. And the drawdown in that reservoir was so pronounced that they had to reactivate the 1915 intake. And yet there was no discernible impact on water quality. So again, why are we looking at investing $2 billion in something that just doesn't seem to be justified? You know, I could go on, but there's no mitigation in here on, you know, on the plan on spending $1 billion. What if we don't need it? And we've spent at least $1 billion on the filtration plan. You know, it's money that's just gone. We also see that, you know, my 25-year time frame continues. So what we're looking at now is potentially even a greater decrease in water demand. You look in Saanich, for example, the billing structure has changed so that people are now paying metered water usage. So there's an inherent desire from people or built-in incentive, if you will, to reduce their water usage. So again, even if growth rates continue at a high 30%, we're seeing less cubic meters of water use. So the whole demand notion, again, goes right out the window. I think for me, what's really key is that demand for water is decoupled from population increase. The data supports that. Water quality is excellent. The data supports that. You know, and ultimately, if regulations should change, the regulator has to give significant amount of notice to the CRD. There would be time to then enact another plan and start to look at cost recovery and how to proceed with that. So not really a question there, but I think you can get where I'm going with this. Is from a Colwood standpoint, I see this as frankly a boondoggle. This is a $2 billion waste of money that isn't based on science, isn't based on data, is based on assumptions that may or may not come true, and to almost double the cost ultimately to home buyers in our region when we're in a housing crisis. If that's not hypocrisy, I don't know what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Day.
Thank you. So my questions are really around those growth numbers too, because the CRD's growth projections have not been particularly accurate in the past for Colwood. And I'm very concerned that this is in its own silo, because we know from dealing with sewer issues in Colwood, do we deal with anything else? That there's a real connection between water and wastewater. And we don't have plans that are aligned with each other either. When I was the water commissioner for quite a few years, when we had raised the dam, I'm very familiar with exactly what our system is and exactly what our issues are. I was trying to advocate for gray water recycling and rainwater capture as a way to help people. And that hasn't been considered either. Not only do we have more efficient appliances than we used to have, we also have smaller lots than we used to have. New developments in Colwood are much smaller than they used to be. And we also are having sewer issues where how can you just imagine that we're going to have that many units when we don't yet have a plan for the sewage treatment. And our solid waste capacity is also a factor in that. Those are all three things that are within the CRD's control. And yet we're not talking about them together. We're talking about them one at a time. So I think that we need to prepare for climate change and be proactive. But the DCCs for water service, and I used to be quite annoyed at the fact that everybody had to pay through the bulk water rate for development of other properties. And I don't particularly see that's always beneficial to the existing users. I understand it's a need within our community, and we need a community. But at the same time, the DCC has the potential to push more costs onto the younger, more developing municipalities in the CRD than the previous arrangement had. So that's a really big change. And I believe that probably our solid waste capacity is a really big issue for the CRD. It's a big issue because we're now using a portion of that capacity for our sewage treatment residuals, which wasn't supposed to be how we were going to do that. And now we don't have a sewer picture, we don't have a water picture, and we don't have a solid waste picture connected together. So we're not going to realize the benefits of some of those more innovative programs like gray water recycling and rainwater capture if we don't look at the big picture altogether. So I'm really hopeful that we can try to envision our future and create a system that will provide just in time improvements, not out ahead of the crowd improvements.
Thanks very much, Councillor Day. Any other questions? Because I have some. Okay, yes, I guess this whole thing was passed back in 2022, I believe, correct? If I'm thank God, I wasn't a CRD director then. But I guess where I'm having a lot of issues, it's actually similar to what Councillor Ward said, because there's an underlying assumption that was made that, I looked at it and I was trying to make sense of this mathematically. And that's the assumption that water, it's a linear extrapolation and it goes linear. But as Councillor Ward had pointed out, it's not doing that right now. It's doing the opposite. So is there an opportunity to go back and look at these? I think you said that's draft at this point in time. Are you going to be going back and looking at your original assumptions? Because I just look at this and I just feel that the kids nowadays are never going to get into homes. When you look at these DCC rates for water and they're equal to the whole municipal DCC, you got to question, how valid this really is. I'm not questioning, they've done all the homework and they're saying it's all right. I know that was brought up by Councillor Ward. He brings up a good point, but I just look at it, mathematically from the point of view, it just, the model of population and water do not equate anymore. It does not make sense to me right now. And someone certainly would have to show that to me. So I guess that's my first question are you going to be able to go back and look at these original assumptions and come back with something maybe that's more reasonable? Is this the worst case scenario? I guess is my question.
Yes, to your honor. The next steps will involve taking feedback from each of the councils that we've discussed this with. And from there, we will review growth is something that we're confirming through this process as well. And then we will provide that feedback to the Regional Water Supply Commission and get further direction. If the direction of that point is to revisit the program, then we could potentially look at things like the assist factor is one of those places where the regional board has an ability to make a policy decision to evolve DCC rates. In terms of the technical background, these are the works that we have determined are necessary and that growth will benefit from within the regional water supply master plan, as well as within the CRD's capital planning. In terms of the relationship between these projects and overall water consumption, some of these projects are aimed at increasing supply. And again, if no growth happens, then no DCCs are required. But if growth happens, then DCCs will need to make contributions towards that infrastructure. Some of this infrastructure isn't driven necessarily just by water consumption, like drinking water consumption. It is also levels of services improvements. Some of them may be regulatory, others are for greater resilience when it comes to climate change and other things like that. I can see if my colleagues in CRD have any additional follow. Okay. Yeah.
So my second question is Bill 44, that what's being proposed, Bill 46, Bill 47, not so much. Okay, but they're going to have an impact on all this too, right? I mean, has someone looked at the delta right now? What the impact of this is? Because it just seems like we're getting this forced down our throats right now. We're not looking at the big picture. So what does it do to this now? Does it obviously it's going to make it potentially worse or better, or has someone looked at this, or was, because this presentation looks like it was prepared before those bills came out?
Through to your worship, the work that is being done today and presented to you has been in progress for almost 3 years at this point in time. So it was definitely conceived and developed prior to any legislative changes done by the province through Bill 44. In terms of the compounding effect, some of the changes to development finance tools noted within that will limit the opportunity to capture amenities through the development process. This means DCCs will remain a key tool within the development process to capture amenities, especially related to core infrastructure, water, sewer, drainage, transportation, and parks.
So gut feel, just gut feel. That's all I want you. I won't hold you to it. Gut feel. What do you think the impact is?
For DCCs on a typical project?
With Bill 44 right now, for example.
Well, I think, in terms of the overall cost?
But yeah, because there's an impact, because there's going to be a whole rush more of housing that goes up right now, right? So, I mean, basically, the way I interpret it is it's a war on exclusive single detached subdivisions now, right? It's a lot of multiplexes and things like this, but there's a cost to that, right? So I don't know if you're accounting for this in all your estimates right now either. So there is an impact though.
Yeah, to your worship. So I guess there is an impact. There's going to be more growth. There's going to be more development. That's part of the reason we're reviewing the growth estimates. We're going through this. We understand that some of the housing supply targets and other things are going to probably increase overall growth. Some of that may be a recalibration of how that growth occurs, whether it shows that there's more kind of missing middle housing versus like larger forms of development. But overall, DCCs are being an important tool to capture that growth. And within the DCC bylaw itself, things such as detached secondary suites will be captured through the multifamily rate and other things like that. So those units that are being proposed and changes, from Bill 44 will be captured through DCCs the way the program is drafted now. So in terms of what we're projecting in revenue, like the growth, again, we're refining as we're going through this, but it is accounting for these changes in, that are potentially coming through the Housing Supply Act. So essentially, we are anticipating higher growth than we initially anticipated when we developed the program. So to your earlier initial question, is this kind of the worst case scenario? I think it probably is. And when we go back to revised growth, it's likely the rates will change. I'm not sure if they will change substantially. And then as discussed too, like the DCC assist factor is another policy decision that, the Regional Water Supply Commission is able to recommend to the regional board upon the DCC adoption. So that's something that has the potential to change the rates. But again, that has to be made up through other non-DCC sources. So, you know, the bill gets paid either through, you know, the water rates themselves by the ratepayer, or it gets paid cost shared with developers. And in this case, the DCCs that are collected would represent about 35 to 40% of the total program. Overall, like, I guess the results of Bill 47, I guess, aren't maybe, they're creating more land use opportunities maybe for development. And they've created new options for cost sharing, different amenities through the creation of the new tool, the amenity contribution cost charges, and which replaces kind of CACs, and then DCCs, they've given the option to include police, fire, and solid waste management. So you could see overall increases in DCCs and set fees, but it would also change the way you know, other amenities are collected that are typically done through CACs would no longer be done at rezoning. It would be done preemptively through the new amenity cost charge proposed development finance tool. Sorry, I know there's a lot in that. Hopefully that answers your question.
You know, because just mathematically, I think of what's in the numerator and what's in the denominator, right? So on one hand, more homes means, you know, bigger denominator, but on the other hand, at the same time, like I said, when I said, I'm you know, when Councillor Ward made the point that there's not a correlation, a direct correlation, it's not, you know, absolutely linear. You cannot extrapolate linear because people have used less water, and the data shows this. And so you're actually getting a savings in the numerator now. So that's why I'm just going, wow, I wonder do we get a chance, or is there another look? I guess that's the biggest question I have. And I think I got my answer that there will in fact be one. So, but I could tell you, I'm very concerned about this because we're just putting these affordability of homes for younger people just way out of this world right now. It's just incredible. You know, we just seem to do everything to make it more unaffordable. So that's my frustration. And I don't mean to take it out on you like that, but it's a fact. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions that any other counselor has? Nope. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Sorry,
Thank
Your
you for feedback.
Worship. There's a few members of the public that wish to speak at this item.
Oh, okay, sure. Great.
Thank
Okay, didn't know that. Please, can you introduce the people? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ben Mycroft. I'm here representing Gablecraft Homes, the developer of the Royal Bay community. I'll try to be quick. We've only got 2 minutes. I just wanted to point out the letter that was issued today to Mayor and Council from the Urban Development Institute Capital Region has been sent to all of the mayors and councillors in the region. And I think it raises some excellent points that I think are worth considering. Many of those points I think were raised today by councillors and the mayor. I just wanted to point out a few sort of significant facts I think that you might want to consider, and all councils in the region might want to consider around this proposal. I do think that the 2022 Water Master Plan was adopted in the COVID year 2022. After several years of bureaucratic workings at CRD, I do believe that the assumptions that we need this filtration plant are erroneous. They're based on quite a few assumptions that I think need to be looked at with fresh, independent eyes. I don't believe that the residents of this region are aware that the CRD is proposing what is probably the largest capital cost item ever expended in the region for a really questionable basis. There were 22 letters received by CRD during its consultation stage. Nobody knew about this plan. Nobody knows it's proposed. They claim that the cost would be 1.5 billion in its 2022 starting year. We've been expending close to $100 million at Royal Bay on infrastructure. We've seen over a 20% increase in a 24-month period. We're now projecting 10% cost increases per year. I would hazard a guess that cost is already at 2 billion, and that by the time 2031 through 2049 rolls around, that'll be a $4 to $5 billion boondoggle. That wouldn't be just development cost charges paying this. They're talking about like a 5 times increase to our water rates, so like $400 to $2,000 a bill. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next, please. Mr. Hartshorn.
Good evening, Your Worship. My name is Jim Hartshorn and members of council. I live at 2789 Guyton Way. You can't stop the old seasons. 30 years ago, in 1994, the strategic plan showed a diversion of the Leech River and construction of a water treatment plant, which was supposed to be 10 years based on objective population growth. By implementing demand management measures, they reduced that to the point where, in fact, they don't, as you've already said, Your Worship, demand of water and population is completely decoupled. It is not even on the same page, frankly. The assumptions that have been used in this agreement, this plan, in my opinion, are dramatically wrong. The water filtration plant, which is proposed to be $1 billion, is given for two reasons. One, potential fire hazard and changes in water regulations. Well, we've already heard, I think the water regulations can be amended. The fire hazard, there's no plan. Part of this plan shows what they could do to decrease that, even though they have staff every day, 7 days a week, looking at water looking at fire in the plant water system. I would ask two things. One, you asked what to do. I'd ask you would reject this council reject this proposal. This was approved in July of 20th of 2022. Since that time, 60% of the Water Commission have changed. The CRD approved it on August the 10th of 2022. A dramatic change in the CRD population of members has changed. I would think that this needs to be looked at. And if this is approved by a new CRD board, they need to be responsible for this type of cash outlay, which is already described the largest CRD project in the history of the CRD. And I guess I got to shut up now. I want to say that I have two more things to say the next time there's a chance to talk about affordability and about the cost allocation. I believe the cost allocation are dramatically wrong. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Peter Swagger, 679 Medalist Avenue is our show home at Olympic View. Thank you for your presentation today, guys. I think we need a lot of work on this, and I appreciate all of your questions and comments so far. I just want to point your attention to the letter that we did send today through UDI. So if you could read that, and look forward to discussing this with you further in consultation with developers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, I would just like to thank you, gentlemen. Rough crowd here tonight, probably understandable, but thank you for coming out and doing your jobs. Thank you. Sorry, Councilor Ward, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, sorry if I may, maybe I'll wait till the room quiets down. I just wanted to add on to this item. While I believe that, you as our sole representative to the CRD board will obviously carry our concerns forward, and that's the venue they prefer, I think it would lend additional weight if we were to, as a council, register our objection to this plan and seek additional consultation and a revisitation of this, more supporting information and so forth. So therefore, I'd like to make a motion that the city of Colwood express our concern and our rejection of this plan as stated to the CRD, to the CRD board, and that we would seek additional consultation, information, and data to support any future decision.
Okay, did you get that motion?
A little bit wordy, I'm sorry, Marcy. I would say that we make a motion to the CRD board expressing Colwood's objection to the plan and seeking additional consultation and data to support any revised version of said plan.
I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
We can play with that a little bit actually, but
Yeah, we can massage the words later. Well, and copy to the Water Commission as well. Yeah.
thank you very much. That's good. Doug seconder, Councilor Jordison will second it. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I'll ask, okay, Councilor Day.
Just wanted to make sure that we included all three systems, not just the water, but that it needs to be linked with sewage treatment and landfill solid waste management.
Councilor Grove. I'll get back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just think we also, they've asked us for input. So if we could compile a significant document asking questions and laying forward what we seem to know and our perspective, rather than just ask for more information, I think might add a depth of usefulness and efficiency to that exercise.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
not sure how we do it this motion over. Okay, but
Gotcha. Councilor Ward.
Sorry, I was going to suggest to Councillor Day if you wanted to amend the motion to include something, but my motion doesn't speak to sewer and other items. I specifically would like to keep it to this specific presentation. I don't disagree with your concerns, but this presentation before us was specifically about the $2 billion allocated to this regional water supply development cost charge program. So I want to be very concise in our communication back to the CRD to say we oppose the water supply development cost charge program as presented on this date. Whether or not we want to seek more information, I don't think those are the words I'm looking for either. I think if I can more clearly state it, I would say that the City of Colwood expresses their opposition to the proposed CRD Regional Water Supply Development Cost Charge Program. That's just the heading there, Marcy. And I would even leave it at that and then allow our CRD board member in Mayor Kobayashi to convey the general reasoning behind it. And this meeting is a public record. So if we just simply express our opposition to the DCC program, that would be the motion that I intend to articulate.
Councilor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if this is something that we might want to put up on Let's Talk Colwood and let, you know, this isn't a secret. It's come to this meeting and it's information that we should share with our community to get their feedback as well. Might just help.
It's a good idea, actually. I don't have any issue with that. So, okay, I'm gonna call the question now. All those in favor of the motion, do you want to repeat it so people know what they're voting on, please, Marcy?
I will do my best, Your
Okay.
Worship. So that council expressed the concern and of the, the opposed objection to the DCC plan as presented by the CRD at this meeting. Does that capture?
Just council objects.
Objects. Thank you.
Just clear. Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous, motion carried. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the consent agenda. There's 4 items on the consent agenda. I think I have one of the items Councillor Day has asked to be removed so it can be discussed. And that's item 7.3, Wale and Wilfert intersection improvements. So we'll actually move that off the consent agenda. That will now become 8.4 under new business. Okay? Yeah. Other than that, I'm going to move on and ask for a mover and seconder for the remaining items on the consent agenda. Okay? Councillor Olson, seconder, Councillor Ward. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Motion carried. Go on to new business. 8.1 Infrastructure Committee Council appointments. As I said before, the new recommendation is that Councillor Day be appointed to the Infrastructure Committee as chair and Councillor Kim Jordison be appointed as vice chair, and that the terms of reference membership be changed from 4 citizen committee members to 5 citizen committee members. Okay, thank you, Councillor Day. Seconder, please. Councillor Olson. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Move on to item 8.2. Beachlands Development Agreement Amendment. If I can ask Yasmin, please, to introduce the item. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ward. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have not prepared a presentation, but I'm happy to walk you briefly through the rationale for the report. So back in April 26th of this year, we came forward with a parks master plan for Royal Beach. And as part of those conversations, we brought up the fact that the clause number 5 of the development agreement, perhaps the wording is slightly ambiguous, and there was disagreement between the developer group and staff as to the intent behind that clause. Based on the discussion and debate that was had at that meeting, council made a resolution to ask staff to renegotiate clause number 5 and come back with additional details on what that renegotiation would be. In staff's understanding of the intent behind clause number 5, we understood the objective of negotiating the deliverable of the plaza space was to commit an early deliverable of a park element close to the start of the development in the lands, that we wanted to secure an amenity space early on during the process so that there was a park element to be enjoyed by the community early on and throughout the years of development. And so with that in mind, we began negotiations with a developer, and they have offered to deliver the playground special place number 5, which is the playground space, and deliver that element within 3 years of this meeting if the amendment is adopted, or the date that the amendment is adopted. And so that is the proposal of clarifying or confirming the changes to clause number 5, which currently speak to the early delivery of the plaza. And the proposal is early delivery of the playground instead of the plaza.
Thank you, Yasmin. I made an error because I forgot there was one gentleman that wanted to speak to the item. So I guess I should get him to come out this time. I'm very sorry about that before I open the floor for questions. Sir, if you're ready. Sorry about that. I'd never forget you though. I looked at you and you gave me the evil eye, so I thought I'd better do something.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Tony Smethis from 390 Bonaparte Street, Royal Bay. Back to the special council meeting of the 26th of April 2023, there was a motion carried by Councillor Jansen and Councillor Olson to open up the Royal Beach, now called Beachlands Development Agreement. and renegotiate the statement around the village plaza being developed in 12 months. It now appears that staff have done their negotiating with both developers and completely put the village plaza on hold at the discretion of the developers, with no timeline mentioned. The village plaza is the prime community focus of the development, and now we have no commitment as to when this will be developed. The developers must have some idea when housing around the plaza is going to be started, although we don't know. So the developers are now committing to completing a playground within 3 years instead of building the village plaza. Cablecraft built the award-winning trail system on Latoya North before many of the housing was started. These trails and landscaping were no doubt the main attraction that sold out this section of Royal Bay. Surely building the village plaza before and during residential commercial construction will be a great selling feature for Beachlands. I submit that the amendment 8.2 be rejected as is, and staff go back to the drawing board with some commitment from the developers on a timeline for the village plaza. Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Incredible. Sir, please come.
Yeah, all right. Mark Salter, 3501 Dunland Street. Currently a member of the Royal Bay Homeowners Association and also the CRD's environmental award-winning leadership in environmental studies and support for the CRD in 2011 as an organic master gardener. I also bring forward the concerns around the lack of commitment and this disingenuous, my wife loves the word, I use it, disingenuous use of the commitment to a park, which would ultimately have to be built in order to manage the water systems. As the previous speaker mentioned, the Royal Bay upper section, the north of the upper section, has a significant bioswale, but technically they manage all of the runoff water off the streets of our development. It is state of the art. It meets all of the environmental and organic master gardener landscape design plans that I've been a part of over my life. And to see that this parklet would be an amendment to the proposal. There's a letter sent to you today by one of the members of the Royal Bay Homeowners Association, Tony, and he outlines that this is a disingenuous request. It meets the needs of the developer, not the needs of the city of Colwood. And as it says on your agenda, you have options 1, 2, and 3, and I consider with the other gentleman that council opt out option 3, to defer this and find a better solution. And as it were, go back to the drawing board and get the commitment that's needed for the city to get what it needs to create the significant asset that is the Royal Beach or the Beachlands or whatever it's being called now. And I find that hopefully you've had the letter and you'll give it due consideration and do defer and not proceed at this moment. I yield.
Thank you very much. And I don't think anyone else in the public. Okay, I shall turn it over to Councillor Ward. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The approval of the parks plan for the Beachlands, or formerly Royal Beach for those who haven't quite caught on to the name yet, was the result of good faith negotiation between the city, mayor and council and the developers. I see both of whom are represented online there this evening. You know, we worked in a spirit of partnership with them to advance this critical development, take that key step on Colwood's waterfront, and I'm grateful for that. City staff were directed, as one of the member public noted, that at the time of the parks plan approval to address concerns by council around the village plaza, as well as concerns which are valid raised by the developers with regard to the timeline on the core of the project. I believe their argument in that sense is reasonable. that developing it within a 1-year time frame from now certainly isn't necessarily in the best interests of either the developer or Colwood. But the Village Plaza and the adjacent and integrated commercial component will define this area as regional and a world-class destination. And it's critical to the best interests of not only Colwood, but of the entire region that this happens and the vision is realized. So while the intent was sound in terms of the negotiation between staff and the proponents, the recommendation before council this evening regarding substituting Special Place 5 is in my opinion, insufficient. And it really doesn't reflect the spirit of council's intentions regarding the Village Plaza. And that's no fault of staff that were involved in this or anybody else. Perhaps it wasn't articulated clearly enough, but I think for me individually, the Village Plaza is the core of this development, and everything kind of hinges on when and how that happens. So I would like to propose a motion. I'm happy to wait until we have other speakers, Mr. Mayor, if that works.
Works for me, Council Ward, so I will take it to, whoops, I had some other people.
Well, perhaps I'll make the motion now.
Any other question? Okay, well, Council Ward, over to you, please.
I would make the following motion that council reject the staff recommendation to substitute Special Place 5. And Marcy, I can email this all to you. And further, that the city identify and engage a third-party negotiator / project facilitator approved by mayor and council to direct further engagement with the developers of the Beachlands. And any future recommendation and or proposed amendment to the Village Plaza construction timeline as referenced in development agreement number CA 8955703 clause 5 AI contains specific language identifying the time frame to construct and or linkage to progress of development on the overall site. So I'll send that to you, Marcy, so you don't have to write that out. And for the benefit of the public that are trying to decipher what the motion really entails, it essentially seeks to reject the recommendation that's before us tonight to substitute Special Place 5 and to direct staff, which I believe could use some support to have a specific individual dedicated to negotiations with this developer, because this is really something unique in the history of Colwood, and it's a master planned community. It is well beyond just a residential development or an upscale residential development. It's akin to, Whistler, a resort municipality of Whistler, or something like that. At least that's the vision in our OCP. So we need an expert to work on our behalf on that. And lastly, what the motion seeks to do is to ensure there is a clear timeline on when the Village Plaza would be delivered. And either that's linked towards a calendar date or it's or is linked to the either occupancy permits or number of doors that have been developed in the area. So that's the motion before us, and I've emailed that to you there, Marcy.
Can I get a seconder? Councillor Jordison, are you seconding that? Okay. And would you like to motivate too then, please?
Yeah, no, I just had a question about third party. Are we looking for somebody to assist the city, or are we looking for somebody to work between the two? There's a difference there.
Okay,
And so that's my
Councillor Ward,
concern.
what was your vision there, please? I have an opinion. Go ahead, Councillor.
My personal take, and I'm flexible on this, is that we'd be seeking a consultant. And when I say third party, I mean a non-city employee, a consultant or agency, or a retired individual with expertise on this that could be brought on for a specific period of time. This wouldn't be the creation of a full-time, long-term, open-ended position. It would be somebody specifically dedicated to the project management negotiation aspect of the Beachlands, working on behalf of the city and mayor and council.
Okay, yeah, so what I'm hearing is, so third party to me just meant between two parties working with both of them, whereas just somebody working on behalf of the city. So that was my only, and yes, and I just want to say that I wholeheartedly agree with this. And I did have one question. If we have consulted or received a legal opinion on clause 5, it seems to be as, you know, the explanation of that clause is just, people have different opinion on it. Have we thought to seek legal opinion on what it actually means by this point? Are we still, yeah.
Do you answer that? Yasmin?
To us, the understanding of the term "or" is clear that we were looking for. To us, the intent is clear. I guess in negotiating, yeah, no, I think for us, the city, the intent is clear, how it was negotiated and how it emerged from conversations as part of the development agreement. Yeah, I guess I will just cautious that negotiating a development agreement will need the other party to come on board. So as much as we can negotiate, I think if there is a point of disagreement, then we will stick to the original proposal and the delivery of the park, of the plaza, absent all development, but hard surfacing of the space within 12 months. I think.
Yeah, I think it's, I could be wrong, but I think it's pretty clear. I think, I don't understand why there's a discrepancy myself. I think it's pretty clear what was written and how it's being understood. I'm not sure where that discrepancy is, but so, but furthermore, I believe it does state in the terms of reference that is the city's responsibility, or the city is afforded the ability to interpret and the agreement the way they see it, that they have the legal ability to do that. I think it's in there somewhere. So anyway, but yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I don't think that we got an answer to the question. I just wanted to know that we have sought or feel comfortable with legal advice that we've received to date.
I mean, this development agreement was created with the advice of our solicitors in coordination with the solicitors from the applicant. So yes, we have confidence that we have a document that was reviewed by our solicitors.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like to speak up. I'm not quite in line with the direction of hiring a project negotiator, facilitator. I'm not sure.
It's a consultant.
What did I say? Facilitator, project facilitator, consultant, if you like. Hiring a consultant to for this process. I don't quite follow the necessity of this action. So my understanding is the Village Plaza will come along. The lawn and playground field, much like Meadowlands Park, successful Meadowlands Park in the Royal Bay development, by the appearance with the addition of a band shell and other features located where they're proposing here tonight, makes perfect sense to me. And as the timeline of development, it makes sense to me. It seems to grow that particular park from the existing commercial development, which is in its infancy and experiencing its early stage growth, pains of vacancy and the difficulty in the commercial market right now. I don't see, I also think that it would, in a timeline of the project development, it makes sense to me to start where they're proposing and work the way down. It will not mean that there is less park in the end. It will not mean there's less commercial development in the end. And the focus of the entire development would still be the waterfront plan as we saw. The details, legal or otherwise, of the agreement aside, I think that to adjust to this, somehow it sits in my mind that it makes perfectly good sense to move in this direction. I'm curious about the size of this lawn. Does somebody in the house have an idea of the dimensions, the scope compared to the previously proposed lawn and playground, special area number 5? Does anyone?
Maybe I'll turn it over to Georgia because she's probably more familiar with the amounts. I know the plaza was 3,000 square meters of hard surfacing. And the playground area is also quite a substantive space, but I'll let Georgia take it.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you.
Over to you, Georgia.
We don't hear you, Georgia.
Oh,
I think you might be muted.
better? No luck?
No, sorry.
Better?
Well, we're working on a solution here.
Sorry, any luck here?
Could you speak again, Georgia, please?
Any luck?
No, we're not very good at lip reading yet.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Can you try again, Georgia?
Yes.
Can you hear us? We can't hear you still.
Sorry, can you hear John?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Right, try it again, please. Oh, no, she just, I think she's gonna try to sign back on again.
Try speaking.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, the old on off. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Sorry, this was all to say I don't have that figure directly in front of me. Unfortunately, Jasmine, I can say Special Place 5 is absolutely envisioned to be, though, a significant amenity and feature of the Central Storm Park area that would provide a tangible benefit to the broader community. And we had understood that the city's interpretation was to seek a shorter term amenity delivery, which we felt that Special Place 5 would deliver on. Councilor Grove, to your question, I can certainly follow up with the direct dimensions right after this, though.
Thank you. And I was also interested in the capacity of the band shell. The plans, as I saw from the original plans to what was presented for today, the Special Place 5 was moved up adjacent to Machosin Road, it seems. Am I right about that?
No, Special Place 5 is exactly as per the approved parts.
I guess it's just the drawings I'm looking at seem to represent it differently. Anyway, so can you, you just suggested what you just said there about the fact that the city asked for a more current deliverable of a special place, causing this presentation to take place. Is that your interpretation of the reason why we're looking at this tonight?
Yes, that's correct. Our understanding was that the city's interpretation of Clause 5AI of the development agreement was to see the Beachlands deliver an amenity for the benefit of the broader community in a shorter time frame. And for all the reasons that were discussed previously as part of the parks plan approval, there are a number of issues and concerns with delivering the public plaza up front. And so we had thought, understanding the intent, which based on the discussion this evening, we're seeing perhaps was not spot on with council's expectations here. But based on the understanding that the intention was to see the Beachlands deliver an amenity in the shorter term, that's where the proposal for delivery of Special Place 5 came from.
So this Special Place 5 could appear, could be worked on pretty immediately, or
correct. I believe the proposal was to see it delivered within a 3-year timeframe of this amendment moving forward.
Right. Oh, okay. So I think that's all I have to ask right now. Thank you.
Thanks very much,
I
Councilor.
also, sorry.
Oops, go ahead, Georgia.
Sorry, I just also wanted to clarify as well, when we're speaking about delivery of the plaza, I mean, I think sometimes the discussion of the plaza is conflated with the adjacent commercial spaces, which need, in our opinion, to work together in concert to really create the vibrant, central, world-class feature that we're all endeavoring to deliver here. And so, you know, yes, could we deliver a paved public plaza surface in the shorter term? Yes, that's possible, but we don't believe that that's in the best interest or the best spirit of delivering the world-class vision that this project needs and deserves to realize.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Grove, just to talk about your statements there, you know, I laud your optimism that the parks plan will just proceed organically, layer by layer, step by step, as outlined. But your line of questioning around the capacity for a field and a band shell, you know, confuses me. We're talking about relinquishing control over the timeline of the core piece of this project in exchange for a grass field with some park benches, garbage cans, and at most a band shell. And, you know, it's great that it's an interesting spot for the community to gather, but it's not the focal point of this entire project. And, you know, I think to date, as I said at the outset, we've had great dialogue with the developers. I think we work together to achieve, you know, the parks plan as it stands now. And I think they probably understand, you know, our concern around the open-endedness if we accept this agreement on what would happen with the Village Plaza. Now, realistically, do we want to see a large paved square down where the current playground sits to sit for years? No. You know, I said in my introduction to my motion that there has to be a reasonable concession made. I don't think anyone wants to suggest that this whole waterfront area be built out in advance of all the residential components. So, you know, in speaking with the developers that I know that are involved in master plan communities, it's commercial, residential, or the opposite of that. It's a step-by-step process. And I think we have to meet in the middle and we have to say, okay, let's develop a certain number of doors or occupancy permits before we hit different stages of this. But by simply accepting the proposal as it stands now, I guess I draw on my private sector experience in mergers and acquisitions, where I develop a business case to buy a multi-million-dollar business. I have a base case, which is what most likely should happen. There's a best case, which is the optimal scenario. And then there's a worst case, which nobody wants to see, but you have to look at that. And as the de facto board of directors for the city, we are obligated to look at the worst case. The worst case in this scenario is that we develop a large grass field with trash cans and benches and a band shell. And that's all we ever get developed for 10 years, 15 years. We don't know when the Village Plaza will come, and we have no say in when it will come, because at this meeting, we decided to relinquish that rather than bring somebody in who's a professional, who speaks the language, who can work in partnership, again, in that spirit of partnership with our developer partners to talk about real concerns that the city has about realizing this vision and finding a way to meet in the middle and move forward. Delivering what we effectively have there already in a playground. One exists to this day where the Village Plaza will eventually sit. A larger version of that within a 3-year time span and nothing else for years to come will not sit well with this community. I certainly won't defend that. I think it's the worst case scenario. And we would be doing a great disservice to the community and the region if that's what we settled for. And I would just finish off by saying, again, this is not a criticism of staff. It's not a criticism of our developer partners. And I mean that sincerely. I think we have worked as partners, and my intent is to continue to do so, but with somebody on our behalf that, they can put their best foot forward for Colwood. I should remind everyone as well, and I won't name names, that the key staff member working on this will be exiting shortly on a temporary basis. There will be, capacity issues within City Hall. Yes, there's new people coming in. We can't afford to take 2 steps backward on this. We need to get it right, and we need to get it right today. And this is our one shot at this. So I stand by my motion. Councillor Grove, I disagree. Respect your opinion, but I think this is too important to settle for a large circle of lawn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo Councillor Ward's comments, but also to state that, I think taking this offline with, somebody else working on the city's behalf to negotiate and work with the developer to come to some sort of an agreement is probably best than discussing it further at this table. I just don't think this is the place for it. So that's why I think we should move forward with the motion if possible.
Thank you very much. Ms. Desjardins, did you have a comment? Sorry, I saw your hand up.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know how to use the Zoom hand raise. Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Though I just wanted to express, Seacliff and Reliance are both absolutely committed to working closely with the city. And I think based on the discussion this evening, it seems clear that perhaps there was a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of the previous council motion, and we would be more than happy to, as Councillor Jordison suggested, take this offline, understanding the clear desire of council is to see a clear timing trigger or commitment made here around when the plaza could be delivered. And so I think understanding that, I just wanted to sort of express that we are absolutely here at the table and anxious to work closely with yourselves.
Thanks very much, Georgia. So seeing no other comments, I'll just make my comments here. I am going to support the motion because I think it's the right thing to do. We're all gonna get to the same place, but I understand this right now. What our public is clearly telling us right now is we need triggers. What are the triggers that are gonna make this happen? I think this is great that was offered to the park amenities as a nice amenity in the short term. Realizing that I'm a business person, former business person, and I understand you need to fill some spaces here before you start building the commercial. It's kind of obvious, but I guess what the fear is out there is that to be quite honest, is that that somehow this is going to be changed, although it isn't. It is part of the parks plan. I don't know how we can get out of that right now, but you can get out of it. It is part of it, and I understand that, but I guess from a timeline point of view, I guess people have the right, and I guess we have the right to understand what are going to be these triggers when we start the other parts of the entire parks plan. And in fact, if you want to think about it, in the two that are highlighted by, of course, Special Place 5 and the plaza. And I want to make it clear to people that you did make a point, or someone made a point. I think it was you, Yasmin, was that the plaza and the commercial are 2 separate entities, although hope the heck you're going to develop them together. But if they go build a plaza, there's no in the development agreement, there's nothing that says they shall do the commercial. It's decoupled right now, and that's the problem I see right now. But we want to get them coupled, and we want to do it right. We want to do right for all Colwood. So that's key to me. So I am going to support the motion. I think, like I said, it's the right thing to do, and I think we're going to go down that path. Now, I understand exactly why Councillor Ward. Your situation, Yasmin, is precarious, and so we want to make sure we look after you here. That's for sure. We certainly need some extra help, and we recognize we might need horsepower. So this gives us, by passing this resolution, it's going to give us the horsepower to bring someone else in to help you. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry. Is there any other comments, questions? I am going to call the question then. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? Okay. Councilor Grove has opposed. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item, 8.3 Accessibility Committee. It's going to have Marcy Lalande introduce our corporate officer, and then I'm going to have our representative on the Accessibility Committee speak also. Okay, thank you very much, Marcy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this item came before council at the September 11th meeting, and at that time, council made a motion to defer it to a future meeting. So the recommendation that's before you is that the City of Colwood participate with the Joint Intermunicipal Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee, and that the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee terms of reference be received, and that Colwood allocates its proportionate share of operating funds for the committee's expenses, and that Colwood support that the funding allocated in the first year be used as the following: assistance with the development of the accessibility plan, facilitated engagement sessions on barriers faced by the public in assessing services of the partner municipalities, and specific projects or initiatives to identify accessible barriers. Also to create an email address to receive public comments. So this first came before council in March of this year. And it is that the corporate officers are proposing to bring forward the committee being done by them. So I'm going to try not to go over all the past information that we have, but current status of IATD is that they're working to register as a society right now. And they're in the final process of finalizing that. Sorry. So currently the town of View Royal, Highlands, Esquimalt, City of Langford, and District of Sooke have joined forces to work on bringing forward the legislation commitment. And I just wanted to kind of go over some of the timelines. So the goal of having this committee is that they're going to wait this fall, begin to draft the accessibility plan, and then draft and issue an RFP for a consultant to lead and facilitated engagement, post an online survey, and consultant to undertake facilitated public engagement. Then they were going to do incorporating public feedback into a draft accessibility plan, bring the draft accessibility plan forward to the partner councils. By this time next year, they're hoping to have the draft accessibility plan on partner websites for additional feedback from the public. They're looking to have the plan in place by January of 2025. And then they're looking to start to transition this Capital West Accessibility Committee from the corporate officers to being community member oriented. So this requirement is that the public bodies meet the legislative requirements as laid out in the Accessibility BC Act and ensure access to our organizations in all capacities identified. And as representatives of this public body, it's our responsibility to meet this legislation. Access is very broad, and it can mean a variety of things, such as access to the local government websites, information, facilities, employment, recruitment and retention practices, and service delivery. So proceeding forward, we need to ensure that our community is accessible for everyone, including seniors, youth, all genders, all ethnicities, all backgrounds, those with physical or emotional disabilities, employees, service delivery and providers, etc. So local governments have been identified as the people who are responsible for their communities. And there will be a lot of opportunity for the committee structure to grow and evolve over time. And depending on the area of focus identified through the feedback tool and outreach, public engagement opportunities to ensure all voices are heard, as some voices in our community are quieter than others. So there is a lot of value for the municipalities to work together to begin to address this legislation focus to remove barriers for municipal operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcy. Would you like to speak to it? Mr. Jordison, please.
So Marcy, I actually just had a question before I speak to this. Sorry, I just wanted to know, when you say that that you're going to produce a plan, does that include, so with the BC Accessibility Hub, are you going through the framework that they've provided and starting with employment and then going through all of it, all of those sections, or just the first two?
No, so the accessibility plan is one of the first steps. So the first inaugural meeting of the corporate officers of the groups that have got together, the only exception is the District of Metchosin is using the Intermunicipal Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, which are in the process of changing their name to Access West Shore. So they will be using them for that purpose. But yes, the plan would be produced through the corporate officers, and that gives a really good structure going forward for the success of this committee past when we hand it off. Because one of the things with this committee is that we need to ensure that we're looking at our services, our delivery, our buildings, our facilities, and the people that know that very well is the staff. But we need that feedback from the community as well. So there's going to be a lot of mechanisms throughout this process to get community feedback and from other organizations.
Okay, so yeah, so I guess I just want to speak on this. I feel like we're analyzing to paralyze, and we're just not getting anywhere with, we're not getting this moved forward. And that's why today I agree that we need to, well, I'm suggesting that we adopt the staff recommendation, which is option 1. But the only, like, I'm not thrilled that the corporate officers are leading this. I have to be honest. I think it's supposed to, I envision this to be more of a committee like all our other committees. But I understand that there's things within the city that need to, that the corporate officers are essentially responsible for this legislation. And I understand that to a point. So, but when I look at the timelines and on page 4 of the document that Marcy's provided, that, you know, it does show that they're going to be hiring a consultant, and the consultant's going to be facilitating engagement and their surveys, and that there is public engagement. And my thoughts around this is that there's a lot of other, there's a lot of people in the disability community that could participate on this. That it's not just IACD and their group. So this opens it up to a lot more feedback, a lot more people hopefully chiming in and giving their feedback. So that's why I'm in support of moving forward this evening. I just think we need to move it along, and we're already past where people they're moving on without us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Day.
Thank you. So I forwarded an alternative motion to Mayor and Council that would see IACD continuing to be our accessibility committee. And it's not that we don't need to consider our municipal partners, but the plan needs to be driven by people with disabilities, not by someone else for them to approve. It's very frustrating that Colwood was such a leader in accessibility. This committee started 30 years ago, as Marco will remember. Marnie Essery has been the current chair of IACTI, has been on that committee for pretty much the entire 30 years. And she has done that not because she desires that role. She'd be very happy if someone else wanted to take that work on, but because it's something that she's skilled at doing. And she is an advocate in many areas. Advocate for the Accessible Transportation or Transit Advisory Committee, advocate for BC Ferries, co-chair on their accessibility committee. And they lobbied the province to get this type of legislation put in place, only to find that once it was put in place, they were sidelined. And that's not right. IACTI wants to drive the bus. They want to be chasing the bus. So it's important for me in the motion that I presented to all of council, which accomplishes the same goals, providing an access committee and giving us the ability to get their input, but to envision our planning with their involvement, get them involved in who does the plan for our community, get them involved in doing that consultation, because it's not always easy to get people to respond to surveys or emails. They have different ways that they like to be engaged, and they have a good track record. There were a number of people who came out and spoke, including the chair, including 6 members of the IACTI committee came out to Metchosin, and Metchosin has endorsed them to be the committee. The committee has done everything within its power, including the work that it's currently doing to become a nonprofit, because that's what the city representative asked them to do. So I find it discouraging, to say the least, that we're going to be doing this plan without putting them at the forefront. So I won't be supporting the motion that's been put forward on the table. I really think that we need to honor the 30-year commitment of people with lived experience to support us in becoming better at consulting with them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for those comments, Councillor Day and Councillor Jorson. This has become a very, very difficult file in the sense that time is always a barrier at the beginning, and it's dragged on. And I don't even care to comment on the various sort of angles on it politically. You know, there's a perception that, you know, IACTI wasn't willing to come to the table or make changes initially. And then on the side of it is, well, maybe they were never really invited to do so in the first place. So there's a variety of different angles on it. I think though, for me, I distill it down to the reality that we've got to move forward with something, but I'm a little concerned with the terms of reference on this Capital West Accessibility Committee. I just don't understand why. Like, look at the membership. It's strictly corporate officers, and it says it's a term of 18 months, expiring no later than March 1st. Why? And maybe this is a question through the chair to Marcy or to anyone who may be able to answer, is why was there no consideration given to community members at the outset? So corporate officers, as well as people with lived experience, you know, maybe people from IACTI or from the general community or other, you know, accessibility, well, just people living it, right? I mean, there doesn't appear to be any invitation at all. It strictly became one or the other. It was either the existing committee of people with lived experience, or it was corporate officers. There doesn't seem to be any desire to find a middle ground. Now, I think at the outset in the report, it indicated something about transitioning it, but the terms of reference make no reference to that whatsoever. There doesn't seem to be a timeline or anything there. So that's one concern of mine. I don't know, Marcy, if that's a question you're able to answer, is when would we expect individuals with lived experience to be invited to be part of this committee?
Thank you, through your worship. So originally, when the report came out in March of this year, I believe that the intent was to actually have a committee that was had citizen representatives on it as well, but that was killed at that time. So we've kind of gone a bit back full circle a little bit. The way that we brought it forward, we had brought it forward again with having committee members, but by that time, most of the municipalities had moved on. As for the time frame, there is an intent that once the plan has been established, that the corporate officers want to they want to be able to put it out to turn into a citizen committee, but I'm sure that it will still have to have representation from each of the municipalities, because a lot of the things that will be looked at are internal processes and services that the municipalities deliver, and not necessarily will citizen representatives know all of those things. So there will be a combined effort, I think, going forward past this time, but the corporate officers do not intend to solely take this on. This is just to get it up and running and established.
Thanks for that. And I think, I just go back to my comments with regard to the Beachlands piece, is that timelines for me are definitive. They're not open-ended, and maybe we'll eventually add somebody. So, I've waffled back and forth on this, but I'm not, it doesn't sit right with me, quite frankly. And I know the right thing to do in terms of expediency and government regulations and everything is just to simply accept the recommendation, but I just don't like it. I'm just being honest. It doesn't feel right from my gut that people without the lived experience are being excluded from this. I also note, just a minor item, that public attendance and input, that public input or presentations by members of the public are not permitted at committee meetings. That's also in the terms of reference. So this is a committee when we talk about not without us. Well, this is really just a committee of corporate staff that get together to talk about what they have to do, what their obligations are in terms of planning. If I'm being cynical, it really doesn't have any bearing on the accessibility community beyond ticking the boxes. So, I'm going to switch the way I look at this. And unless a motion includes some kind of definitive statement around including people with lived experience or public presentation, or an option to review after 1 year or after 18 months to potentially see if Access West Shore at that point is a viable option, I'm not sure I can support it. I think it's way too hard to the other side. I don't like extremism, and this to me has just gone completely to the far right on this is just a corporate thing now. So I don't like it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to speak before I open it up to you, Cynthia, Councillor Day, because I just want to put my 2 cents in here. I've been watching this with great interest, and like everybody else around the table, I've just been going back and forth on this, and then we're back to the original motion that was first put in front of us, and it just went a complete circle. I guess the way I look at this is that there's one thing that bothers me a little bit, why each end of it has advantages. On one hand, this would be a first ever, if we had a citizen committee responsible for making sure we have compliance with provincial legislation. I've never seen it. I mean, I don't think I don't think we can do that, to tell you the truth. And so I have a few issues with this. So my comfort zone from that point of view is having the corporate officers, as you said, well, set it up and then let's get the citizen committee going, because you're right. That's the problem I've had with corporate officers doing this right from the start, was the fact that, the people that are most affected by this are not part of it. Exactly like Councillor Ward said, they're not part of it. So, but on the other hand, like I said, we have to make sure we meet legislative regulations, whatever that means. But I know what you just said, but it'd be very unusual to hand that over to, a civilian committee and say, make sure, because we can't hold them accountable for it. I can look at, the corporate officer, you as our rep, saying, are we in compliance? And, yes or no, and you're going to have to take the actions to make sure we are. So I see the advantage of that. I can't necessarily do that with a citizen committee, you know, because they don't have that same accountability. So that's why I'm torn between this. But on the other hand, what's pulling on me is saying, you gotta have the people that are affected on this committee. So as I mentioned to you earlier, I think there's gotta be, what's the compromise, folks? You know, and if it means we go alone, we go alone on this. You know, we're gonna do it right. But I don't think what we're doing right now is, you know, I'm right and you're wrong. There's a middle solution to this. And I strongly feel that way. And I don't know how to do this, to tell you the truth, because you have to address this concern of mine right now that we as a city are being held liable to ensure that we're within compliance. And I don't understand, like I said, Marcy, I don't understand what that all means, but you know, that we have to be in compliance and we hold employees accountable for making sure we're in compliance, not citizens. That's the only thing that bothers me here. And anyways, I'll turn it over to you, Councillor Day. Do you have a answer for me on that?
No, your worship, I just wanted to note that there will be many opportunities for public input, and I really do hope that members of IACD will provide input when this plan is getting created. I think they'll be instrumental in the creation of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Day?
Thank you. I do have an answer to that question, which is that the legislative requirements always lay with the city, always. The corporate officer does have to decide what meets legislative requirements. But what happened here is that the terms of reference for the corporate officers committee was made without input from IACD. So we're trying to get the people with lived experience in the driver's seat. And what I keep running up against is that the staff don't want to let them in the driver's seat. So if I am forced to choose between being directed by people with lived experience of what the barriers actually are and a staff-led vision of what the terms of reference for the committee should be that's supposed to address accessibility, I'm going to go with the citizens with a lived experience, because they have to inform us. And there is a member of the public who would like to speak to the agenda item, which may be helpful to you. Because there is a lot where we need to respect that lived experience, and we need the help of the corporate officers, absolutely. IACD has never not wanted to work with the corporate officers, but what we found was there was very little credibility given to the people with the lived experience. And it's not our corporate officer who was taking that tact, but she lives in a professional environment, and it's difficult for her as well. So I would think we would like to hear from the public if we could.
Come on up. I didn't realize you wanted to speak to the item. Sorry about that. Yeah. I just want to identify who you are.
Good evening, Council. My name is Sarah, and I just wanted to have a little bit of an input on my experience. I'm a citizen who is experiencing a new way of life with a newly diagnosed disability. And from my experience in the professional corporate world in the past, and now my experience as someone who cannot work anymore, I think it would be beneficial for the community in general to have at least one member of the public, a citizen with limitations, to have a say and to use their voice to help guide the corporate members to, guide them in making a better decision for everybody involved. So I just wanted to state that from my personal experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Councillor Jordison.
I just want to say that I have been trying from the very beginning to make this about the people, to include this people that the plan is about from day one. And I personally don't understand why we have a council here that, or why we can't say to our CAO, I'm sorry, but this isn't on, and the corporate officer is not going to lead this group. But for some reason, that hasn't happened, and that would, to me, be the first solution right there. Stay in your lane is what needed to be said, but I didn't get that support. And then I've continually been, I feel like I'm being pushed to get this moving because it's not moving. So I'm not really getting a support to stand alone either, because I would prefer to stand alone than to go with the others, but I don't feel that the support is there for that. So with picking between the two options right now, that is why I chose to go with the corporate officers. But the corporate officers shouldn't be doing this on their own. They, like Councillor Ward has explained, that there should be people that this is about within the committee. So I was the one that wrote the motion to take to Machosen, and I was the one that got them to agree, their council to agree to, without everybody else that represented IACTI there, to work with IACTI to move that forward. So that is my ultimate goal, was to have the people that this is about to be on this committee. So maybe I just don't think that the two groups can work together. I don't think there's the trust. So I'm not sure if I could make a motion to amend. Well, we haven't made a motion yet, but we could make a motion to include people on the committee like it should be. It should have been from the very beginning. But again, if we make any changes to this motion, it has to go through 7 municipalities. So we're just paralyzing it again. So I don't have the answers here, except I think we should just stand alone. Just stand alone. Put a request out there for people with lived experience, or work with IACTI, whatever people want to do, and just do our own thing. I don't know what else to suggest.
You're absolutely free to make a new motion. I mean, you don't have to go with option 1 or 2. That's for sure. You want to make that option 3, and I'm starting to understand your option 3. I sort of lean towards that option 3 more than anything else right now. That's for sure. But if you want to make a motion, Councillor Jordison, you certainly can.
I don't.
So,
I mean, even Councillor Day's motion wouldn't be the correct motion, because we don't need to include anybody else in it, because they just don't get it. So we don't need to include them in it. There doesn't need to be that we're going to participate in a joint committee with all these municipalities, because that's our #1 problem right there. I don't know.
Councillor, okay, please. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look at it.
So I crafted this motion based on that Machosen has already carried that IACTI would be their advisory committee. And IACTI is very willing to take any input from our corporate officer on things that need to be included. IACTI is certainly willing to work with the corporate officers. We just want to be sure that IACTI and the people with lived experience can set at least the criteria. So it is important that you have people with lived experience on your committee. So I I'm sure that eventually the other municipalities will likely come back to IFT because IFT has strength and skills in maintaining networks and reaching out to people in a way that they want to participate. And my motion is that Colwood continue to participate on the Joint Intermunicipal Advisory Committee issue on disability issues, IACTI, with the District of Metchosin, that the City of Colwood support IACTI becoming Access West Shore, a nonprofit society, and that council provide its appropriate share of operating expenses, either through grant and aid or as a line item in the budget, and that staff collaborates with IACTI or Access West Shore on the choice of a consultant for the Colwood Access Plan, and that staff work with IACTI Access West Shore on the Colwood Access Plan. So this motion is all about us working together. It just puts the lived experience as foremost. And by the way, we do meet the accessibility legislation by having IACTI.
Okay, so this is what you're moving then, correct? Councilor Day, can I get a seconder so we can discuss this? Okay, Councilor Jordison seconds it, and I think you've motivated it enough, Councilor Day, unless you want to add anything else, Councilor Jordison.
My only concern with this motion is that we're essentially giving this legislation to a outside committee, and that we have no. So that's my only concern, that there should be somebody from council or on this committee, some representation. Like, I mean, there already is, and I'm not sure what that looks like.
There is still.
So yeah.
Go ahead.
I apologize for the back and forth. I'm just having trouble anticipating what the questions are, and I'm trying not to talk too much. So IACTI, the legislation requires that you have a committee, that you make a plan, and that is what this motion does. As far as any internal issues around compliance, that part, the employment issues, that's led by staff, informed by people with lived experience. Issues in the community, how that works, what barriers we identify, that rests with the committee. Yeah, I don't believe that you could give your legislated requirements to any committee. It would always still need to come back to council with a recommendation from some people with lived experience.
Got it.
Can I just ask staff opinions, please, on that? I just want to make sure we're staying within the legal bounds here. Does someone want to take this on? Marcy, please.
I did want to highlight one thing through you, your worship, is that originally when council allocated the $10,000 in funding towards this was based on sharing it with 7 municipalities, because that's the approximate cost to have a consultant to do the plan. So that was one reason why the municipalities did get together to share those costs. So I don't know if 10,000 budget would be adequate to develop the plan and have the consultation done.
Okay, so my question specifically then, I know exactly what I want to say. Can staff work within the framework of this type of committee to ensure we meet legislative requirements? That is my question.
Yes.
Thank you. I just had to get that, that assurance. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Ward. Oops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't disagree in principle. I think my only concerns go back to this lengthy process that it's taken to get to where we are here. And I know it's been fairly acrimonious. In speaking with council members from other municipalities, they felt that there wasn't necessarily a willingness to kind of engage. And in fairness, I have to speak up, I think, for Councillor Jordison, who really has put her best foot forward to try to bridge the gap between the city and IACTI. And, at one point, and I referenced this in a previous meeting, that there was, terms of reference had been sort of agreed in principle. And I believe Machosen Mayor Little was present there. And, then they were subsequently changed, like 24 hours later. So I do have concerns in relinquishing control entirely to the committee. For me, the happy medium was a committee that is under city control, but with people with lived experience. Could be the members of IACTI, could be other people in the community. I draw on my own experience, and I'm sorry to be long-winded, but you know me. As I've said in previous meetings, my mother suffers from MS, is a member, or was a member of an accessibility committee in the Comox Valley, and she only took part in that committee at one point when a change of rules happened, because the accessibility committee was rather cliquey and closed to newcomers. And so on the one hand, we view it as, okay, it's positive these folks have worked together for 30 years. Herself and a couple others were able to finally contribute because there was a change in makeup in terms of how the city reacted to committees, and they were able to make a substantial difference. But prior to that, they'd kind of been frozen out. So if I'm being honest, my concern is that we've tried bargaining in good faith, if you want to call it that, up until now, and we haven't gotten anywhere. So here we are at the 11th hour, shifting again back. I honestly think that the happy medium is working with the members of IACTI and anyone else with lived experience in a structure that that brings both together, the city and the and the committee members. So I'm undecided. When I said I was waffling back and forth, I don't like extremes. I don't know if I like the entirely pre-existing structure and the uncertainty that comes with that, and the long-standing relationships and the struggle that our representative has had to kind of work with that. Are we being fair there? And on the other end, like as I said initially, I don't like the corporate only. So for me, somewhere it's a happier middle ground, and I haven't seen it yet. So that's my my take on it anyway.
Thank you very much, Councillor Day.
So just very briefly, some facts for you. The Intermunicipal Advisory Committee on Disability Issues is open to anyone who wants to come at any time. Their viewpoints are always welcome. They can participate every single meeting, 1 meeting, 10 meetings, it doesn't matter. It's not a closed group. It has changed over the years. And I think what's been missing for me has been a clear direction on ensuring that the voices of experience are front and center. And I don't necessarily include myself as one of those, although I've learned a lot in my time there. And I think as far as the costs are concerned, there are 3 members who are actively involved with the committee, 2 of which are fairly new to the committee, who do accessibility plans in their day jobs and are well respected within BC, have done the plans for other locations on Vancouver Island. So I don't know for a fact that $10,000 is a reasonable amount, but I'm sure that IACTI has the best possible chance of being able to identify a cost-effective solution.
Okay, can you put the motion back up on the, well, the one, yes, the one that's on the table right now. So, okay, I'm sort of clear. So I guess, I have a question I'm gonna direct it to you, Counselor Day. So another potential solution. I always look at different ways of looking at this. IACTI functions well right now from what I see right now, very well run, you know, and it's got all the involvement of everybody. So what if we were to join the Can West, you know, and just get this thing going? And then IACTI still has its role like it serves us right now. It is an advisory committee to us right now, and we support it financially. I don't think we've done anything bad to them. So what if that relationship just remained that way? What are the disadvantages? Like, to me, I think IACTI may be taking on something that's way bigger than them right now. That's my, I'm afraid of this for them, actually. Do you know what I mean? I've got this fear, and I just want to make sure that they really understand, you know, if you go ahead with this motion and we do this, that there's an understanding of what's going to happen here. I guess what my big fear right now is that, you know, all of a sudden they're going to go, oh, we know we need like 20,000, another 30,000. People can't do this, we can't do that. And we're no better off than we were with the original motion. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what my biggest fear is, because right now I can see that other scenario is where we just sort of be part of the access, or the, well, access West Shore. What is that? What is access West Shore? Capital West. Yeah. And so, and then still use IACTI the way we use them now. I mean, which is, it's fantastic, I think, right now. I don't know. It's just, I'm just throwing that up. Concert.
So what we had has been pretty fantastic. We had a resource that you could make referrals to, who would give you input, and it cost you very little. It cost, you know, in the order of less than $2,000 a year to support IACTI over the years. Yeah. And I was just looking at the budget today. Budget for 2024 looks like it might be, because we do have some extra expenses with going to becoming a nonprofit, we're looking maybe it's $3,500 a year to run IACTI, the same as we always had with outreach events, etc. I guess what the problem for me is, what the harm is rewarding a group who has really disrespected people with lived experience by not including them. The nothing about us without us is really important to people with lived experience. And it's, I mean, one of our members, a non-voting member, because she's a professional, has done her master's thesis on accessibility committees, and was very concerned with the approach that was taken to accessibility with the Capital West. It was in the paper. She tried very hard to be as fair as possible, but worldwide, the most important thing is to not talk down to people, address the needs that they tell you they have, not imagine that you think you know what their needs are. So I think that while we're trying to be very economical with our tax dollars, it's important to remember that it's easy to go in the wrong direction if you don't start with trying to provide what people actually need. So I really think that I have no doubt that IACTI needs the corporate officers. I'm just not sure that the Capital West Committee is interested in listening to what the people with lived experience feel that they want and need, or what they've seen before. The Comox Valley just did their accessibility plan, and it was done by a member of IACTI. So they have the ability, they have tremendous experience and expertise, but there is a corporate culture in every municipality, and every municipality has some professional management issues that IACTI may not be as aware of. So we do need to work together. And I don't think IACTI has any problem with working with Colwood, and wants to see the culture shift back towards letting them drive the bus, and let us know what you need corporate wise, and we'll do everything we can to get it to you.
Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering how this would be any different with this committee if we were able to. So currently right now, the committees that we have within the city are driven from the staff. The staff prepare everything and what's on the agenda and that sort of thing. So the corporate officers could still be the drivers of it, and then people with lived experience on the committee could be part of the makeup of the committee. Is it possible to, with the motion that Marcy has had brought forward, to make an amendment to that motion?
There's no.
I know we have to get rid of the last.
There's no motion. The only motion is this motion.
Okay, so.
Sorry, a point of order. Go ahead. Sorry.
So just on the point of order, the discussion when there's a motion on the floor needs to be on the motion. You can propose an amendment, or you can make a motion to defer or refer, or there's options, but the only discussion is on the motion.
I agree with you. So
I can't amend that.
I really know. I really, it was out of order. So.
Yeah, no, I know. I just don't know how to address it. I can't amend that motion. I can't amend that motion, so.
Yeah, please, if you could you identify the issue? I mean, you can do a motion arising though out of this if you want. But you can vote against it and then do another motion that arises from this. You can do that. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to the who's driving the bus issue. It seems like we're right, how quickly we forget that the legislation that brought all of this about, that IACTI is on the radar and has been it's been a very difficult process. And it all came about as a result of IACTI advocating for legislation in BC to ensure that other municipalities that didn't have a committee like IACTI would get on board and create a committee like IACTI has, like the city of Colwood has done. So I want to make sure that the needs and wishes of persons with lived experience are front and center. I want to put them in the driver's seat. I want myself as a member of this council, I want to support them, and I want to support staff in working with them. Whatever is needed to get us working together again, because we've worked together really well for the 20 years that I've been on this committee. I just need to know what it is that you need as a council to trust that the people who've been advocating for people with disabilities can effectively bring forward a structure that works for people with disabilities in Colwood, to support employment of people with disabilities, to support active recreation, to be able to live, work, and play in Colwood without experiencing such severe barriers that there are things they cannot do.
Thank you very much. I guess the only thing that, you know, is sitting in my mind as my last question is, we sort of touched on this, and that's the composition of what this committee looks like. Is it just 100% IACTI members, or, you know, is there, you know, people from municipal government on it? That's the big question. That's the $1 million question for me. Councillor D.
We are happy to, we are working to becoming a nonprofit because that's what the citizen or the council rep asked us to do. That's why we're doing it. So you're going to need to decide what way you want it. First, we had council members on the committee and people with lived experience, a good number of people with lived experience. And we were told that that wasn't good enough. It had to be only people with lived experience because of the legislation. So we started figuring out this nonprofit, not looking for council appointments. I don't know how that works. I've always worked with IACTI that had every council who chooses to work with IACTI as a member on the committee. So at the moment, and we can still work as a nonprofit, being the people with lived experience, and we can still work as IACTI, being a committee of Colwood that appoints members to that, and we could just stack those meetings right beside each other. It's all entirely up to you. IACTI is totally happy to have members of council participating on the committee. They just want to ensure that there is a proper disability lens, that lived experience is given merit so that we can move forward. We've done disability for a days, we've got partners, we've got the network part figured out. That's the hard part. Now we want to work with everybody else to try to make sure that everybody's needs are met. But there has to be an acknowledgement that that we're letting them lead us to what people with disabilities need. Otherwise, that's a token, and it's not going to work.
Message heard loud and clear. I guess the other thing I just want to clarify, though, I don't think any one person has made them become nonprofit. It's just complying with our own grant and aid program, because it's very clear there you're supposed to be nonprofit, and we've been sort of turning a blind eye. I've always assumed that they were, and found out they weren't. So, you know, that I think that's what's driving this, to tell you the truth on that side. I'm sorry, just last comments and I'm gonna wrap it up, I think, and call the question. Councillor Jordison.
I actually would like Counselor Day to retract her statement because it had nothing to do with me stating that this committee had to be anything. But what it has to be is non-dysfunctional. And I've been on this committee for a year and it has been nothing but dysfunctional. And if that's what our last 30 years has been, then, you know, I'm sorry, but it has its issues. And for the people that have been on the committee, there hasn't been anything provided to help them become more of a committee to do the work that they say that they want to do. It became more of a social committee. It became more of a non-relevant committee. So I take offense to that. I did not suggest that it become a nonprofit or whatever, but it certainly wasn't working the way it was. And that's nothing to do with me. I came on to try and make it work between these two groups, and it's just been painful. And
Okay. Your message, you got your message across. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ward, and I think I'm gonna wrap it up.
Please. Mr. Mayor, I think, again, I'm looking for a rational middle ground here, and I'm not sure it exists when we reference IACTI. Councillor Day, I gotta be direct on this one. I've supported you along the way, and I continue to advocate for people with lived experience. I won't let that go. That has to be there. But I noticed in the last sort of round of conversation, you continuously referenced, we have been doing this, we have been doing that. And it wasn't the city you were referencing, it was IACTI. And I kind of wonder if the lines are blurred and there's just too much time spent with that group to see objectively that this evening we're here to represent the city's interests, and they can align, don't get me wrong, they can very much overlap and align, but this is a heated topic. It's a bit emotional. I believe that Councillor Jordison was put in position to fail ultimately because we have too close a tie with one councillor to this committee. Councillor Jordison is the outsider. I even see it referenced in this document you handed out where it said, you know, there's individuals attending a chosen, and they're all named, and it's, you know, some are Colwood residents, and all but one are voting members of ACTI based on years of involvement. So, you know, Councillor Jordison was always going to be sort of the city appointed representative and not part of the group. And I kind of wonder if a clean break is what we need. A combination of corporate involvement to ensure that we align with all of the requirements that are needed, as well as an equal representation from people with lived experience, be it members of IACTI as it stands today or other members of the community. I'm trying to be completely analytical here and free of bias, judgment. And I think that ultimately, as I do with everything that I view in this lens, it has to be what's best for the city as a whole. It's not political. It comes down to, okay, what do we need? We need compliance. And we absolutely need to be represented by the people who must, you know, have that voice. And I believe there's a way to do it. I don't believe this motion is the way to do it. And I don't believe the original recommendation is the way to do it. Personally, I believe there's a middle ground, but I'll leave it until such time as there's an opportunity or not to put it forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, I don't want this banter, please. Councillor Day, I'll let you.
Thank you. It's just that what I wrote has been misinterpreted. So when I said all but one were voting members, the one person was not the council representative. Kim spoke at that meeting. She has a vote. The person that didn't have a vote is because they represent an organization, and so they've chosen to be a non-voting member but provide information to the committee. And when I speak of we, I am talking about Colwood, and the change that happened was that this committee stopped receiving support from the city of Colwood. They had support for minutes, they had support for agendas, they had support through the budget as a line item because it had been identified years before that it wasn't really appropriate that they be granted aid. So the we that I speak of is Colwood as a whole. Colwood is a leader in accessibility. it's gotten somehow off the rails with a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of poor communication and a lot of new people coming to the table. And perhaps you're quite correct that IACTI has over time been less well understood around council, and maybe only the people that are sitting at the meetings, such as myself, are really getting it. But they have tremendous potential, and it's certainly not their fault. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus whatsoever. I just want to elevate persons with lived experience so that we follow their lead in what they need, not assume that we know what's best for them.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna call the question at this point in time. I think we're just debating around circles here. So if you can just shrink it a little bit again, just so that everybody knows what the motion is. Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor of the motion as recommended by Councillor Day. All in favor. Okay, that's everybody's opposed. So just Councillor Day and myself are in favor. I will open the floor up for other motions at this point in time. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make a motion. Difficult, but I'm going to do this too. The motion is to accept the recommendation to join the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee. However, subject to the terms of reference being amended to ensure that the initial committee membership is expanded to a minimum of 4 lived experience representatives at the outset, with an ideal membership within 18 months of 1 lived experience representative from each member community.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I can, and I'm going to send it, well, I'll send it to Marcy here to.
Councillor Olson beat you out. Councillor Olson seconds the motion.
Sorry, I'm just sending it. I've got the mic active, so I'll read it again here, unless you've got it now, Marcy.
I don't have it, but just through you, your worship. I don't know if we could put this motion forward with an expectation that any of the other municipalities are going to change as they're about to commence. They've already got their resolutions in place from their councils. They're proceeding and they're having their first meeting on November 22nd. So
I can amend the motion to remove, so here I'll change it quickly. So I would amend the motion to say to accept the recommendation to join the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee, subject to the TOR being amended to ensure that the membership is expanded. Sorry, I'll rewrite it in a second, but to ensure that the membership is expanded within 12 months to include a lived experience representative from each member community.
I think that's reasonable because I was going to make the same point there that it's, you know, because everyone signed up as is, and for us to come along now, it just wouldn't happen. We're just delaying everything, the inevitable right now. So I like the way you put it.
Did you get the change there? I've deleted it.
I did. So it's to change the terms of reference to ensure that there is membership is expanded within 12 months to include peoples with lived experience.
Yeah, I would say 1 representative.
1.
Oops, sorry.
1 representative per community.
Okay, so I'll open that up for discussion. So you got the mover was Councillor Ward and Councillor Olson was the seconder.
And can I just clarify, that's also including about the proportionate share and what has to be done in the first year and the email address, all the rest? Thank you.
Okay, I'll open the floor. Councillor Day on the motion.
Thank you. I'm opposed to this, and the reason is not probably what you would expect, but the terms of reference were developed entirely without input from people with lived experience. They were purposely done that way, in spite of objections from IAPTE. I think that the plan that will result from this will be more expensive as a result. And I think that the focus will be more on the employment side than on the lived life side. And that worries me tremendously. I think it shows that COVID has really lost its way when it comes to working with people to support people with disabilities. And you may lose a large body of work to create a network that supports people. Talked to Marnie this month, and she has helped about 300 individuals so far this year to access services in Colwood. That has value.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Day, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think very valid points. Just to understand my motion, I think it's try to find a middle ground. And I think for me, the wording of it, the more I think about it now, when you give 12 months for them to reach equal membership level, so you've got a balance of corporate staff on one side and one member from each community on the other side, in theory, the folks with lived experience will have an equal voice at the table. So amendments to the terms of reference, if the committee lives up to its values and what it should do, which is listen to the people with lived experience, amendments to the terms of reference and the path they chart forward should be fairly organic in that it should work, should being the operative word. Now, it may not, but if we find it at such time that it hasn't, you know, once they appoint or if they go back on or don't agree to adding the lived experience people to the committee and it doesn't work, well, then I think we, you know, we'll have to re-explore it. But for me at the moment, I think it's a bridge to find a way forward. And I'm optimistic. I think there's enough people with lived experience that can come to the table and be loud with their voice and hopefully make some change. You know, and they certainly would have my support and council support, I think, in doing so. I don't think Colwood has to relinquish our position in terms of focus on accessibility issues. You've been a champion of that for many years. I certainly support that, as I suspect do others, and I think it behooves us to make sure that we continue to follow through even under a slightly different format. You know, so again, it's not perfect. I won't pretend it is. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess I'm going to hold the what our corporate officers just told me right now. I'm going to hold you guys to account on this, that this is a transitionary thing. And the whole idea is that this is going to transition over to something different than what we would, you know, just having corporate officers. So, you know, based on that, I'm willing to take a chance on this, and we'll see. Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion on this. I'll call the question on the motion. And is the motion? Can you reread the motion so everyone understands what they're voting on?
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's that the City of Colwood participate in the Joint Intermunicipal Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee, and that subject to the terms of reference, ensuring that the membership is expanded within 12 months to include people with lived experience from each municipality, and that Colwood allocates its proportionate share of the operating funds for the committee expenses, and that Colwood support that the funding allocated in year one be used for the following: assistance with development of the accessibility plan, facilitated engagement sessions on barriers faced by the public in assessing services of the partner municipalities, and specific projects or initiatives to identify accessibility barriers, such as assessments of partner municipalities, websites, hiring practices, and main municipal hall buildings. And further that the City of Colwood establish an email address to receive public comments as set out in the Accessible BC Act.
Thank you very much. So all in favor, please? And those opposed? Councillor Day opposes. Motion is carried. And sorry, I got lost my place here. Yeah, we moved 7.3 to 8.4 now, right? So is Aaron? Oh yeah, no, it's not Aaron. That's Josh. Okay. Can we just take 3 minutes here? I need a health break. Sorry, folks. 3 minutes. Yeah, it's good for you. Okay, Josh, we'll resume and over to you. You can just introduce it, Josh. Thank you.
Absolutely. So just to confirm, it was the sidewalk and bike lane program that was moved to the end. Excellent. So in October, the Active Transportation Committee
Wait a sec, no, it's the Wale and Wilfert.
It is a little.
Sorry.
Forgive me.
Yes.
I think I misheard an 8.3 versus
Yeah,
8.4.
7.3 becomes 8.4.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, so Wale Wharf, also in October, the Active Transportation Committee, Aaron from the engineering department presented the proposed development at Wale and Wilfert and showed a diagonal crossing that would connect the Goose from one corner to the other corner of the intersection. And the ask was is if council would like staff to consider this same setup for any future intersections where this might be appropriate. The two examples that were provided were Souk and Aldine, as well as VMP and Kelly, I believe. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be very happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Day.
So the picture that's included with the report shows Wale Road intersecting T intersection with Wilfert. And the project location appears to be where the hotel and suites are. So what you just said didn't fit. Oh, this is where the Galloping Goose crosses Wale Road.
Yes.
So I'm not, there is no diagonal crosswalk in the picture.
If you look at if you look at Appendix 1 in the project, you'll see a drawing that has the proposed crosswalk crossing. It's hard to say. Wilfert Road ends right there at Wale, but it crosses from one sort of corner of that intersection to the other, because that's sort of how the old rail line and now the Galloping Goose connected beforehand.
Okay, I see. I was looking at the wrong picture. That's why it didn't make any sense to me. This is going to be controlled by a light for the diagonal crossing, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. This was actually only for information anyway, so there's no motion on this, but I did pull it from the agenda, from the consent at Councilor Day's request. So thank you very much. That's all we need you for.
Absolutely. I believe it was brought from the recommendation from the committee was put forward to consider this at future intersections. Not anything specific, but if this is something council would like to see elsewhere, we would just like council's sign off on that design.
I see what you, I see the second part of the
Yes.
recommendation. So would someone like to please, okay, Councilor Grove, second on it, Councilor Ward. Discussion. Councilor Day.
Thank you. I think each time it gets brought forward, we're likely going to have discussion on the safety impacts. This one is probably more clear because it is kind of a diagonal desire line in that location, but we have looked at this kind of idea before for the intersection of Souk, Island Highway and Ocean Boulevard. So like where people are leaving West Shore Parks and Rec at the bus loop and they want to go across to the side of the road where the bus stops are by the Galloping Goose Trail, where we're going to have the bridge there. So that has been also talked a little bit about years and years ago now, to look at potentially a scramble kind of intersection. And safety concerns were bigger because it's such a big intersection. So I do think that each time it comes forward, I think it should be a consideration, that we should think about it, but that their circumstances may be different in each case because of turning movements or different desire lines.
Just to address that, yes, any design would be through a recommendation from a design and a traffic consultant, and those designs would be brought forward to council, and we'd have a discussion in full then.
Excellent, Josh. Okay, moving on to bylaws, 9.1, bylaw number 2002, nuisance abatement and cost recovery for adoption. And mover. Yes. I can move it and then we can discuss after the motion. Okay, that's, well, normally you make a motion, you second it and then you can discuss it. Then I can call the question. No, it had first, second and third reading already. This is adoption. But we've already had first, second and third reading of this. It's not. Well, questions? You want questions? If I can't get a mover and seconder, then there's no discussion anyway, so. I mean, you have an opportunity to discuss this. I'm just looking for a first and seconder, please. Okay, Councillor Ward and Councillor Jordison, please, and I'll open it for discussion. Councillor Day.
So we did receive a letter from a resident, and it is in regards to this bylaw. And it is with regards to potentially feeling threatened by the use of this bylaw for asking questions of city staff. And I just want to make it clear that it's very important to me that we keep the lines of communication open and that the city residents should be able to ask questions.
Absolutely. And I have no issue with that. None. Okay, any other discussion on this? Open the floor, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? Councillor Day is opposed. Motion carries. And a motion for adjournment, please. Councillor Olson, Councillor Grove. Discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.